Ken Adelman, let me ask you this a question on the same lines. President Obama upset his critics, especially on the right side, in his dealings with Israel. And I've read some Israeli newspapers. They are saying now President Obama will be forced to change his stance on the Israel-Palestine issue. Do you see that he'll be pressured to do that?
There's going to be a little bit more pressure to do that. I myself don't think that the peace talks are going to result in anything anytime soon. It's a good exercise to go through, but I wouldn't really expect any kind of agreement in the next 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, whenever. I think a ceasefire, the Palestinians building up a Palestinian working operation of a government on the West Bank would be very good, and is proceeding, and that Israel stopping terrorism would be very good, and kind of a ceasefire is there is as good as we can get for the foreseeable future right now.
So, General McCaffrey, do you see anything substantive come out of President Obama's efforts? Because in the recent history, every U.S. president has tried to immortalize himself through this Middle East peace process. What kind of efforts do you see now that he doesn't have control of one of the houses?
Well, first of all, I welcome the engagement. We can't go wrong trying to promote dialogue among these warring parties. Having said that, I'm extremely discouraged about the situation. It seems to me we are on the edge of another armed disaster. We're seeing thousands of missiles coming into southern Lebanon. The Israelis are locked in this confrontation where the Gaza Strip turned into a giant prison, which doesn't serve either side's interests. It's hard for me to imagine how we're going to break out of this hatred. So I would caution all the parties involved that the next war will be much worse than any of us could imagine.
I think on
yes,
an
Ambassador.
Optimistic point, there's a very strong agreement that a two-state ending to this is what must happen. How to get there, of course, is what we're all talking about. But let us not overlook, on an optimistic point of view, some of the progress that has been made. The security in the West Bank is much better today than it has been, largely as the results of General Dayton. Economic development in the West Bank is at a fast clip. The impact of the midterm elections is something to look at there. Because the committees will be changing from Democratic-led to Republican-led. And I think there'll be much greater pressure on our foreign assistance. We have been very generous in foreign assistance to the West Bank and Mr. Faad's efforts there, and it's been very successful, largely led by two extraordinary congressional leaders, Congressman Berman and Nita Lowry. I would like to ask everybody to watch this one very closely, that we maintain that progress.
Well, speaking of, go ahead.
Let me say, I agree with Wendy on that the Palestinians are acting very responsibly. They're acting like they're producing a government instead of being revolutionaries against Israel, and all that is to the good. I guess I disagree with her slightly that the American aid level is really a dominant factor in what happens there. If they stay productive and they stay stopping the terrorism across the border, and the Palestinians can be a very prosperous people. They're smart, they're active, they're really fine people that can be productive in the West Bank by themselves. And if they show that, I think we're getting to a situation that all this talk about a peace agreement someday, maybe someday, but it's not going to happen anytime soon, and therefore there'll be a two-state solution without the flags and without stamps and without a airline name for Palestine, but it'll be like a state in Israel. I think that's fine.
Well, let's talk about the relations with Russia now. Do you have something to say about Russia?
Yeah, I just want to say that this long-term ceasefire is not sustainable in my view, and we've seen that every 2-3 years there's an outbreak of violence, and each time it gets worse. And the Palestinians are not going to sit there and play this game while the Israelis eat up more and more of the West Bank through settlements. There needs to be a border between Palestine and Israel. Otherwise, the Israelis will take advantage of the situation. That's what they're doing now.
Okay, but there weren't
Yes.
any
Well-
settlements before 1967, and it wasn't a time of great peace.
Yeah.
I mean, there were eruptions every 2 years
Well,
then when there were states. So
We
you know.
could have a special show on this topic itself, but this administration's Russia reset policy, do you think that the New START treaty will get ratified? You talked about the changes in the committees.
Well, I think Ken Adelman is really the expert on that, but my own view is that it must get ratified for the interest of the United States.
Yeah, my
You may
view-
disagree with me, but...
Yeah, I disagree with you that I'm the expert on this, but I would agree with you that I think it will get ratified. What the Republicans will go after is not so much the language of the treaty, because the treaty has almost no language. It's a language-free treaty.
All right, thank you
General
very much.
McCaffrey?
I'm
Very
afraid
small.
I'll
that's...
just add one point, that the treaty is largely not important to us. The problem with nuclear proliferation is Pakistan, India, Iran, North Korea, et cetera. And right now, when we talk about these massive nuclear arsenals that both the Russians and the U.S. had, it's to our economic and security interests on both sides to reduce these sort of astronomical levels of violence that we had amassed during the Cold War. We're talking about the wrong issue. We need to talk about proliferation of weapons of mass destruction.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we'll have to end this part of our program right here. I would again like to thank all of you for coming here and sharing your views with us. It's been a very, very absorbing discussion. We'll take a short break here, and when we come back, we'll touch upon another important subject, and that is the impact of Tuesday's election results on the domestic and global economy. Please stay with us.